Hey, so today I want to talk to you about getting better at Tombs of Amascut. The thing is that there's not just like one way to improve at a thing. This is just how I went about it and how I think it would be the fastest way to get better at Tombs of Amascut. What this video will not be going over is how to red X, how to butterfly, Zebak, jug positioning, or whatever you could think of, Kephri, ranger trapping, like warden, last row tiling, that sort of stuff. All of these things you'll have to find out on your own, or if you want, I can make separate guides on them. However, there are plenty of resources for it. So what I'm going to go over in this video is how to set up Tombs of Amascut so that it's optimized for your practice, so that when you go into each room, you can practice perfectly. So that way you apply perfect practice to your overall technique, and then you get better at Tombs of Amascut really quickly, as opposed to bashing your head in and like dying in solos or going 30 minutes into a raid and then dying at Akkha. So let's get into it. Now I am currently in the TOA mass world. This is a place you can go to if you want to experience the whole raid. You can see that people will advertise different parties for invocations, like there's an 8-man 150 here. These are really good if you have a bit of fear going into the raid, or you're intimidated or anything like that. You could just go in here. If you make a mistake, it's fine. The team survives. There's like 7 other people involved. They can go in and you can get your completions. This could be really useful if you're going for something simple like a rune pouch, or if you want to get a specific gem for your Karis. This could be a good spot for it. But instead of that, what I'm going to show you is how to practice for every specific encounter within Tombs of Amascut. Right now I am set at 0 invocations, and let's say I want to practice Baba. I will turn on all of the Baba invocations that I want to practice. In this case, I'm doing all of them. If you wanted to just practice Mind the Gap, you can just turn on Mind the Gap. And if you wanted to practice Boulder Dash without Mind the Gap, you can turn on everything except for Mind the Gap. But by itself, this is obvious, and it's not that interesting. What's important to note here is that your stats will influence your practice. So if you are fighting Baba, and you are fighting Baba at like 35 invocation, but you're max 99 with decent gear, you will transition Baba before anything happens. You'll red X like twice in 2 hits, and then Baba will start transitioning. So the way we're going to go about this so that it's like a realistic scenario, first off, I think you should always have deadly prayers on. This is just good. It's basically free invocation. If you mess up, your prayer goes down. It's good. So we're going to scale up the raid, but we're only going to put on the invocations for the boss that we're practicing. Everything else doesn't matter. So for example, if I throw all of these on, they don't matter. Regardless if they are difficult in practice, like Medic, for example, I'm not going to use Medic. I'm not going to put on Quiet Prayers or on a diet because maybe you need to use Bruise or you don't have a Karis or stuff. You could do something like No Help Needed, which takes away all of your supplies because you're not completing the raid. The point of this type of setup is not to get purples, but it is to get better at each encounter within Tombs of Amascut. You can also turn on Sprint for it. Because it's a 25-minute timer, it adds raid level. It adds 25 raid level. You're not going to be completing the raid. It's fine. But the important thing to note is that you keep these skulls off. This gives you an unlimited amount of practices in Tombs of Amascut. This will definitely calm the nerves, because every time you go into TOA now, you can be rest assured that you don't have this mental pressure of, oh, I'm going to lose money, or I have to re-gear, or what else intimidates you for TOA. You can just keep doing it over and over and over and over again. And that is the point of this video. We're going to be practicing. You could turn on things like Walk the Path, and you can see that right now I am already getting to a high raid level. So if I want to, I can go in with all these Warden invocations and practice Baba without Mind the Gap, just so I have Boulder Dash on. Or if I want to practice Mind the Gap in the full fight, I can do this and I have all the invocations on. Or if I don't want Boulder Dash and I just want to practice Red X, I could also do that. Or if I want Mind the Gap off, that sort of thing. So what I did here is I turned on the invocations that I want to practice for Baba, and then I turned on everything else that normally you would never turn on for a TOA, like 25 minutes, no help needed unless you're doing higher invocations, all that sort of thing. Walk the path doesn't affect us at all because we're just going into one room, etc. So yeah, we have unlimited food, we have unlimited retries, we're chilling, and that's it. So you should adjust this to be whatever is best for your gear and levels. If you're like 70s combat with like mid gear, maybe you want to practice on like a 250 Baba. You can start taking all these off, and now your raid level is 280. It makes it significantly easier to damage Baba and not as punishing when you make mistakes. If you are aiming for mastering the raid at a higher raid level, then you probably do want to scale up the raid. If you can see at raid level 280, we have 112% defense and damage for the monsters and bosses that we'll encounter. If we scale this back up to, what was it, 435 or something like that, instead of 112% damage and defense, we have 178 defense percent and 150% enemy damage. So this will be a lot more punishing, but it will require you to be a lot more technical in your execution for the strategies of different rooms. So that's what we're going to go here. I'm going to show you different ways to set up now for each room. Configure it however you like. That's the beauty of this type of practice style, and specifically for Tombs of Amascut, the beautiful thing about this is you can adjust your invocations to set up for practice. I highly recommend doing it this way. Next time you show up to your friends' TOAs and stuff, you could be like, hey, I learned Red X, I learned Butterfly, and you spent like 2 or 3 hours just like going through it. I also have started making a series on YouTube called like Pitfalls. And currently I only have one video out for Baba at the time of making this video, where it's all the different pitfalls of Red X, but I will also add the other ones for TOA as well, so you can also check that out if you want to know what you're looking out for during your practice runs. So let's get into Baba. Okay, so I just wanted to add one more thing over here. There are goals that you want to keep in mind when mastering TOA with all the different rooms. I didn't cover it in the video, so I'm just going to put it here. The goals that you want are for Baba, you want to be able to complete it with Red X without messing up a single time. You want to be able to do it without getting hit by boulders while you're running past him a single time. So you want to do that perfectly. For Kephri, you want to make sure that your movement is good. Never get hit by Kephri's bombs a single time or while she is downed. You also don't want to get hit by the arcane mage spell, and you want to have the melee trapped. Whether or not your swarms are good are up to you. So that's your parameter. And then for Akkha, you want to never get hit a single time while doing Butterfly. That's the goal. And then you also want to practice your enrage phase. Just try to like make it as easy as possible for you. It's not very strict that you should never get hit during enrage phase, but you know, the more practice the better. For Zebak, you should aim to never get hit off prayer. You should also aim to never step in a puddle, and you should also solve the jug puzzles correctly, of course. And then for Wardens, you should try to not get hit by exploding skulls. You should try to pray everything correctly every time, and you should also not get hit during Insanity. You should be able to move last row correctly, though that's like getting a little bit more advanced. And then you should also be able to dodge all of the obelisk stuff, like the spotlights coming down, the UFOs that people refer to, as well as like the windmill attack and the lines that are converging. You should be able to dodge all of that, and you should also be able to switch to your melee gear in time to get off your DDS specials, or to be able to start hitting the core with prayer activated right away. So keep those goals in mind as you're practicing. If you're able to hit all those goals for all those rooms, I promise you, you are permanently set for Tombs of Amascut, nearly any invocation. The only thing that will be left for you to learn is how to do raids with the yellow Karis, so brewless raids. Other than that, you are completely good, and that's like hitting 500s at that point. So best of luck. I hope you guys get better soon and get some purples. Yeah. And of course, if you like this type of stuff, you like what I do, etc., feel free to give me a like, subscribe, comment what you think, any criticism, suggestions, that sort of thing. I'll read and interact with all the comments. So yeah. So for Baba, you're really just trying to get past the monkey room. So you only need whatever mage weapon you're using, if it's a shadow, if it's a sang staff, if it's a trident, that sort of thing, if it's barrage, like whatever you're using for mage, because the monkey room is going to be the same regardless of what you use. So I'm going to be taking some range gear. That looks good. I'm going to be taking a fury as well, why not? And then I'm going to be taking the shadow, and then I'm just going to be doing one-way switches between my Inquisitor mace and my shadow. So I'm just going to clear the Baba room. And then for the rest of my inventory, I'm going to fill this up with food and maybe one prayer potion. And I'll also throw in an anti-venom for the monkey room. So the reason why I have this style set up in particular is because my sole objective is to get past the monkey room and then start fighting Baba immediately. And with Baba, when you're doing Red X, the goal is to not use any supplies. It should be a 0 supply room if you're doing Red X correctly. And the point of this mastery is so that you can learn to do this correctly. So I'll see you when I pass this room and we go on into Baba. Alright, so now we are all done for this room. If you want, you could bring things like a super combat for Baba, all of that, but it's really up to you if you want to put in potions. Let's say that you did the monkey room and you're wanting to practice monkey room, or you're wanting to practice the Kephri puzzles or something like that. You could just clear the room, see how you feel about it, and then just leave the raid and then go back into it. It'll be just fine. So now we are here in Baba, and the point of this is that I am, even if I am low prayer, by the way, the great part about this raid setup is that you see that the timer is also 3 minutes out of 25 here at the top left. It's inconsequential because all we're doing is practicing this room. So I am going to purposefully die here just so I can show you guys how the practice method actually goes on. So I am dying here. This is very fine. We have unlimited deaths. That is the main thing that I'm trying to get across here, is that you shouldn't feel stressed when you're trying to practice and get better at these encounters. I was low prayer. I didn't want to drink prayer, so I just let myself die, and now I'm reset. Obviously, this isn't advisable for hardcore Iron Man. So yeah, we'll go in here, and now my objective is to do Red X. That is the whole thing. I'm not even using thralls because I just want to attack. So we're going like this, going out, and then I'll probably fast forward until I get to a point where I want to simulate me messing up. Okay, so let's say this happens and then I get like really confused. I start running around and I'm like, oh man, this is like super bad. I'm really supposed to have mastered this bottom part perfectly. What am I doing? Well, I could just restart. Just like AFK, and we're chilling. It's completely fine. So this is how you'll ultimately be able to master Baba as a room, specifically for inefficient Red X. You can get even better at Red X later, but that's like for more advanced people. The goal here is to just be able to master Red X. I have unlimited deaths. I could do this as many times as I want. I brought food. I'm not using any food or supplies if I want to play hardcore like that. Like any mess up I start to restart. You also get these things called honey locusts when you die if you have the on a diet invocation turned off, which gives you like additional sharks, stamina. I think maybe it does prayer too. I'm not too sure. But this is also a really good utility item that you get every death, so you can continue and even push past 1 or 2 mistakes that you'll make. All right, so now I'll leave. The run's abandoned, but nothing happens. I didn't lose anything. Let's go into Kephri. So for Kephri, you'll want to change it up a little bit. Notice how for Baba, I basically had all the invocations, because most of the time whenever you do solos or teams, you're going to have most, if not all, of the invocations on. However, for Kephri, it's a bit different. When you're doing solos, you almost never take medic unless you're doing a combat achievement or some crazy challenge or something like that. So we're going to turn medic off for Kephri. So likewise, you don't have to do more overlords if you don't want to practice it. You should always put lively larva and blowing mud on, because they are essentially free in a solo, and for teams they have some effect, but it's inconsequential for your practice. So You could turn on aerial assault if you want to practice aerial assault. If you just want to practice bodyguards, you could turn aerial assault off and don't practice medic. Like, you can practice medic, but it's really it's a really specific thing. For Kephri, we're just focused on movement and dealing with things like the mage scarab and melee trapping. Let's say that I want to practice with more overlords on. So we're going to go in just like this. We're going to also adjust our raid level to whatever we want. And now it doesn't matter. We could turn off all of the Baba invocations if we want, because we're only going in to attack Kephri. These are the only invocations we really care about for practice. So we're going to go into Kephri, right? And instead of going to Baba's side, we're going to go to Kephri's side, do that puzzle. And I should also mention that if you're going to practice Kephri, you should probably bring extra prayer restore potions. It'll probably help you out. You could basically stay here as long as you like, though. Same for the Kephri puzzle. If you want to just redo this, you could finish it and then like leave the raid, come back in. It should be really stress-free. There's no monetary cost of doing this. The only thing that you use here is time, and you need that in order to get better. You will not get better at this raid overnight, but this is a surefire way for you to fail and fail often so that you can get better faster. In addition to prayer potions, you probably want an anti-poison or antidote or anti-venom, something like that, because the ranger will ultimately poison you when you spend enough time in here. The other thing that I would probably suggest that you bring is either a blowpipe if you want to practice swarms in between Kephri downs, or and as well as a magic switch if you plan on trapping the melee scarab. So let's say I go into Kephri, and my goal here is to be able to handle more overlords. And let's say the way that I want to handle this invocation is by practicing trapping the melee. So I will just go around here, and let's say that I forget or something like that, or I mistime something, and then I mess up the dunk, right? So instead of just like being upset with myself in a regular raid or something like that, it's like, oh, I made a mistake. Let me restart until I get this right. And then you will get this part right where you will start to trap the melee correctly and then be able to move on to other Kephri phases. Maybe next you want to try practice swarming. So you would bring down Kephri and you would try swarming. And then let's say you want to... Oh, what else can you even do? And if you get any of the swarming wrong, maybe you want to reset after that and keep practicing Kephri downs, in which case you would lower the invocation so that you can get Kephri's down right away. So let's see how something like that works. Okay, so now I want to practice swarming. I'm just going to go ahead and turn off all these other invocations. They are not necessary at all. And that looks good to me. I can even turn off Walk the Path. I can even turn these things off too. Basically, what I'm going for is keeping Deadly Prayers on, and I'm looking to practice swarming as best I can. And you'll probably also be practicing swarming with aerial assault because the kamikazes that come in are still attacking you as a 3x3. So let's go into this. You'll see that I also have 3 divine super combats, like 3 super combat potions, as opposed to taking 1 or like none as you would in a solo raid. And that's because I plan on doing this over and over and over and over again. Typically, you can also bring staminas, though typically in Kephri you don't bring a stamina. However, if you feel like it will help you in your practice, go ahead and bring it. Personally, I would only bring staminas for Akkha though, as we'll get into after this. Your goal with this raid should be to spend as much time getting familiar with all the mechanics and the techniques so that you feel confident of the encounter that you're practicing. And then when you do a full raid, you will be able to combine all the rooms together and display your mastery. And it will be worth it, I promise. You can see that I have lowered the invocation in the top left from like 400 or something like that to 45. Because in this case, I just want to kill Kephri as fast as possible so I can practice swarming with my blowpipe. So let's see how fast now it's going to take. Alright, we're at 40%. And just like that, Kephri is already down, and we could start swarming. This is an example of how you would practice swarming. So you just lower the invocation, so that you can kill Kephri as fast as possible. If you realize that you've messed up your swarming, like let's say you just like fell asleep or you forgot or something like that, or you're trying to be greedy, trying to see if you could hit the range scarab like while Kephri is healing, then that's no problem at all. You realize your mess up, you're like, damn, I could have done that better. Instead of doing the Kephri puzzle over again or trying again next raid, just let yourself continue to get hit, and then you will be carried out. There will be no consequences, and then you could just restart this room right away. This is how you can get a lot of practice in a small amount of time. Actually, let's do Zebak first. For Zebak, there is a combat achievement. This is what I personally recommend you do. If you want to like completely master Zebak in totality, what you should do is try to complete the All Praise Zebak combat achievement, which is defeating Zebak without losing a single prayer point. If you can do that, you've pretty much got Zebak down. However, you don't have to do that. I'm just saying if you want complete total mastery of Zebak, 100% good to go, then try to do that. Otherwise, just treat it like a normal raid. Bring whatever you want to use for Zebak. If that's going to be range for you, if that's going to be mage for you or melee for you, then, you know, do the thing accordingly. That's all you have to bring, is the style that you're most comfortable with, that you plan on using. And then for the puzzle room, you don't need anything. So you just need to bring like a bunch of range pots. Like literally something like this is good enough for Zebak. So I'm going to be practicing Zebak. That means it doesn't matter what other invocations I put on. I could put on all of these. I don't plan on going to it. And I could practice Zebak with blood, with extra jars. I could practice with smaller jars, and that's basically all you're getting from Zebak. If you want Zebak to start on level 2 instead of like level 0, then you could just put on Pathfinder as well. This will give him additional defense and make him attack faster. So you could also treat this with the other rooms too. If you want Kephri bombs to fall faster, you could start Kephri at level 2. Same with Baba. If you want the boulders to fall faster, you could start at level 2 there. And for Akkha, if you want an extra memory special, you could start at level 2. But for Zebak, for this room, this is all you need. Just like a bunch of boosting potions, a bunch of prayer potions, you should be good to go. Because the goal with practicing Zebak is to not die. And you shouldn't need to be getting hit all the time. That's how you die. So you'll be practicing not getting hit, getting your prayers right, getting your movement right, getting jugs correctly, that sort of thing. And just like before, we have unlimited retries, so we're chilling. And of course, adjust your raid invocation to whatever makes sense for you, given your gear and stats, so that Zebak isn't just like a bunch of zeros all the time. Also, if you want to practice this room and try to get that 32-second time, maybe you are like always lacking behind 1 or 2 seconds and you really want to improve the 2 jugs for the Zebak puzzle, then just restart from here. You're also chilling. So we're going to go into Zebak. And all I'm going to do here is just get to the jugs portion and the waves portion, and you'll see that you could just get right back into the fight. If you want, you could also bring a special attack weapon to lower Zebak's defense. Let's say I do this and I mess up. And I mess up the jugs, and then it's like, oh shit, I'm screwed. Like, let me just try to see if I can work some magic here or anything like that. And it's like, oh man, now I'm going to die here. I guess you don't die at this raid level, but a lot of the times you would just die. Then it's like, okay, you're good. Then just let yourself get killed, and then you could just restart and repeat. Just do this until you get like perfect Krondis or something to that effect. For Akkha, you could practice all styles. Typically, you will be practicing the butterfly method. And you could practice the 4-tick or the 5-tick with a shadow. So I am going to bring my best magic gear and nothing else, because I don't need anything else. Bring a heart if you have a heart. If you don't, then it's whatever. Bring like a bunch of staminas. So this is like 10 staminas. Bring a bunch of ranging potions. Bring a bunch of prayer potions, because you'll need them. And this should be your setup for practicing Akkha effectively. You could also bring thralls if you want, but it's probably just like a waste. We're going to go into here. We're going to pick a raid level that's appropriate with your magic gear, and we're going to scale up from there. And then you're going to put on what invocations you want to practice for Akkha. If you don't want double trouble, you take it off. If you want to practice only double trouble without keep back, you put off keep back. If you want to practice just keep back without double trouble, then you take it off. If you don't want these, you take it off, you know, etc. That sort of thing. So I would say that you should defaultly always get comfortable with Stay Vigilant and Feeling Special, especially if you're doing Butterfly for Stay Vigilant. And for Keep Back and Double Trouble, those are more like, I don't know if Fringe is the right word to describe it, but they are reserved for the higher level invocations when you're going even past 500. I don't even think these are necessary to complete a 500 raid level, but yeah. So just like before, none of these other invocations matter. Akkha is now level 400. That's a pretty decent invocation. Akkha's going to start at level 2. That means there will be 5 memories in the middle, not 4. So you could also practice 4 versus 5 memories. The only things you need are stamina and prayer potions, because you're just going to be running around a lot. Since you are practicing, you won't have access to salts to keep your run energy up all the time. That's why we bring stamina specifically to practice Akkha. And then we bring prayer potions because you want to use prayer. You don't have to though. Technically, you don't have to use prayer at all, because if you're getting hit, then you've messed up Butterfly, right? But it is a lot more forgiving. It'll probably be easier for you to keep Pray Melee on while you're doing Butterfly, so that if you get accidentally hit, you don't have to completely restart because you took like 60 damage or something like that. Okay, and just like for the other rooms, if you want to practice the mining puzzle again, you could just leave after it's done and then keep resetting. So we're going to go into the room and start butterflying. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm not going to show you how to butterfly. That's on you. What I'm going to do is show you how to practice so that you can keep practicing butterfly and you can get better at it much faster. You typically want to do a 4 or 5 tick butterfly. That is how you want to approach Akkha, because the other time when he goes to range and to mage styles, you are basically always going to be taking damage. So you just want to practice this. You could use this for things like DPS checks as well, or for just general butterfly purposes. If you mess up, then you just die. If you mess up the floor, if you want to practice Feeling Special, that is also fine. You could bring all the combat styles and just let Akkha keep hitting you, and that way he will switch to the middle special. So let's say you mess up like this and he switches, then you could just let yourself die, because there's no point in dealing with Akkha's other styles. Your main goal here is to be practicing butterfly. So if he switches styles because you mess up or whatever like that, just reset the room, and then you could get into it again without spending 30 minutes of your life getting back to this point in a regular solo raid. If you want to practice the middle floor special, just have Akkha keep hitting you. He will eventually switch and do a special attack. But if you are going for this strategy, I recommend you bring a bunch of brews instead, because obviously he still chips at you over time. So there's one special you could practice. If you want to learn how to practice this orb thing, then you could just have his just have him attack you like that. If you plan on triggering the Simon Says, the memory special in the middle, I would recommend also bringing tank gear in addition to food, so that you can just absorb these hits as you go. Maybe you want to practice from one of the butterfly tiles, so that when he goes to the special and you're doing something like Double Trouble, you could practice that. See, now he's going to the middle and we are just practicing it. Let's say you mess up here, it's okay. You could just let yourself suffer the consequences. Now you've reset with no consequences, and you're good to keep going as long as it takes for you to get better, as long as you can handle it, that sort of thing, until you finally feel comfortable with this room. And then the last thing we're going to get into are Wardens. So I'll let you guys know when I get there in a low invo raid. Alright, so for Wardens, you're going to probably want to practice Insanity. Or not. You could practice literally anything. Maybe you don't want your prayers to get taken off when you get hit by a special attack, so you'll take off Penetration. Or maybe you don't want the Obelisk to charge as fast, so you will take off Ancient Haste, that sort of thing. The cool part about Wardens is that you can choose the raid level you want to scale at, so that you could get your timing down for things like when you're going in to do your DDS attacks, or when you're going to do the final row for Warden. If you're doing Insanity, if you notice your DPS is lacking and you want to attempt to do the final row, then you could also increase the invocations for that. But because it is Wardens and you are specifically trying to practice the last fight of the raid, you still have to go through all the other 4 bosses But this also means that you don't have to care what invocations you put on for these bosses. You could have it be really chill. You could just take like all these off. Mind the Gap, Boulder Dash, doesn't matter. And then you'll have a very chill time getting to this level. You still keep on things like Sprint for it, the 25-minute thing. And for resources, you could have full supplies. And this will let you stay at the end of Wardens longer. You could put on Walk the Path, because that's a healthy dose, a healthy amount of invocations while increasing the raid. And now I am looking at a 300 invocation raid. Personally, I'm going to go up to 310 and then even add on Upset Stomach for 325. So now I'll be able to comfortably get to Wardens with invocations I know that I'm good for. So I have Mind the Gap, well, I'll keep Mind the Gap on, but Boulder Dash is off. Let's say you have trouble with that sort of thing. I'll actually put that on as well. So the main thing is that you want to add this invocation sprint for it, but you want all these skulls off now, and you want all the supplies you can get. So now you'll be able to properly be set up. Otherwise, treat it as a normal raid and just get to Wardens. Have the mentality going into this that you are not going in to get loot or to get a purple. You are going in solely to practice Wardens. I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but when you're going for Warden practice, I would strongly advise, you don't have to do this, you could do salts if you want, but I would strongly advise that you choose life twice, because you want to maximize the amount of attempts that you have at Wardens without having to keep killing all of the other 4 bosses every time you need to get to Warden. So I already chose life before, and now I will choose life again. Oh wait, we don't have enough room, so let's say that you used all of your supplies getting to this point. Like you brought in all your restores and brews, and now you've used them all. So you could just get double life, and now I have 3 brews in addition to a whole inventory that I could practice with. This is like 10 restores, 10 brews, 4 ambrosias, 2 healing dressed things, 2 scarabs. Like, you're good. You'll be really set. And remember, the point of this is to practice, not to get a purple. So you see at the top left over here, I've nearly reached time for the time invocation. But the point of the time invocation is to just boost the raid level so that it's at a challenging enough point that I can get good practice out of it. An alternative to doing all this for Warden specifically is to just run normal raids. If you want to do that, you'll still be able, since you're getting here, it's up to you. But you could definitely just do this if you have something specific that you want to practice, whether it's the obelisk, maybe you want to tick eat properly, maybe you want to know how to do some fancy methods for the obelisk, maybe you need more practice during P2 of Wardens, so you're just gonna like keep hitting it and staying around. Maybe it's gear switching with DDS specs, maybe it's last row stuff with Warden. It's up to you. But yeah, so I recommend if you're going to practice Warden that you get in here with double life. You'll be all set. Keep in mind though that your experience, if you're going at the same raid levels that you normally do your raids in, you will probably suffer because your DPS is lower by not having salts and choosing double life. So that could be a reason that you would choose to go for double, for 1 salt and 1 life instead. It's really up to you. So right now we have skulls popping out everywhere, the explosive bombs. If you want to keep practicing that, you could just choose to reset right now instead of just waiting for the next phase. Do remember though that because if you choose double life, that whenever you brew up, you actually need to restore everything. Since your brews will lower your combat stats, you'll have to restore them back up. Okay, and for the last bit of practice, I don't know if there is a simulator out there yet online for this, for the last row of Warden on Insanity, but if you wanted to practice it here yourself, pretend that when P4 starts, the last phase of Warden, pretend that you only have the last row available to you. And this will make you really good at last row really fast, because then you could practice it. So just stand here the entire time. Don't even worry about anything else. The rest of the floor doesn't exist. In this way, you could practice as if you are on last row. And this will give you extra time to practice without feeling like you're going to die immediately. So yeah, I would recommend doing this for last row. However, if you choose to want to reset, maybe you're like, hey, you know, I could still use another go at this. This is why we took double life. You see in the pouch, if I can open the pouch in time. No, I can't open the pouch, but the pouch has like a bunch of supplies in there. So if you did want to keep doing this and resetting, maybe you want more practice, you could just choose to end it right here. You'll be kicked back to the beginning of Wardens and you can repeat the process again. But I will not be doing that because I just want to get out of this raid. Oh, also, don't be expecting a purple. Remember how we chose the 25-minute invocation? It was to boost the raid. This is for practice. You're going to be dying a lot. You're going to be losing a lot of points. Just don't expect the reward at the end. But expect to come out of this raid better than you were before. Alright, and that pretty much does it for this video. Thank you guys for tuning in. I just wanted to emphasize that I wanted to put additional emphasis that this is so that you can know how to practice Tombs of Amascut so that you can get better. All the methods for each room, you'll have to find that on your own and choose which one works best for you, and then keep practicing it until you get comfortable. Then you can continue to push invocations, add different mechanics. You'll get there pretty quick, I promise. But yeah, thank you guys for watching so much. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Let me know what else you'd like to see. Rate, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And yeah, see you later.